Welcome to the Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richeimer. I am beyond excited. We have Rebbetzin Slovie Jungreis Wolff, who is with us today. What words of wisdom, like hello. We are so privileged to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So excited.
Yay. Both of us are smiling so big. And when people realize what topic we're about to talk to about, they're going to be like, why are they smiling? We're just happy to be here. But we do have, I'm going to start off with a very heavy duty question, which is why are so many young couples getting divorced today?
Wow. That is a really loaded question. And we can't deny that there's a lot of suffering right now going on. And there were young couples that you were just at their wedding and somehow you hear that there's a divorce, and it hurts and it's shocking. And it's not just the couple that hurts, but think of the families and the parents and the grandparents, siblings who don't know what to do and what to make of this situation. So why is this happening? There has to be a lot of reasons, but maybe we could touch on a few so that together we could find a solution and healing. And maybe there's a mother listening to this, or a grandmother, or a young wife, who would then be able to contemplate a little and ponder and share the wisdom that we can try to give ourselves and to everybody else. It's hard even to say that so many young couples are getting divorced, but when you hear the numbers and statistics, so everybody knows somebody. So what do we think? Of course, there's personal stories that people have, but if we would give a general idea, what would we say? I would say that we are living in a culture, and our children have been raised in a culture where, first of all, many have not dealt with real life and disappointments and frustrations. You know, you get to camp and you're not in the right bunk, so right away you call home and you're crying and mommy has to fix it. Or something's too hard in school, so instead of a little struggle, the teacher gets a call, you know, this child needs extra time, or this child can't manage, and can you excuse her for this and that? And parents fill in instead of allowing children to sometimes sweat a little bit. So when a child gets married and they're on their own, but something is uncomfortable, or they see that, wow, I don't like the way this feels. It's not what I thought it would be. Hashana Rishona is tough, and life can be hard and difficult and challenging. It's not what you thought it would be. Sometimes you'll disagree. How do you react? Are you able to handle struggle? Are you able to do a little bit of sweating, a little mesiras nefesh, a little bit of sacrifice for another person? If you're not used to sacrificing for another person, I speak about this a lot in parenting, to teach a child to sacrifice. I mean, our kids today, think about it, you know, they don't even make a lunch or salad for themselves. Everything's Uber Eats, right? The comfort level has become so high, the basic comfort level. You don't wait on a line. You order Amazon Prime. It's in your house. It's in Instacart in 10 minutes. So when you're not used to sweating, what happens when you have to sweat in marriage? What happens when it's not what I thought it would be? I better call mommy and daddy, or they have to like fix the situation. We don't know how to fix it ourselves.
Can you talk a little bit about expectations? Because you and I have talked about that before, about how that plays a role in this, because I think that's crucial.
We expect life to be perfect. We expect our children to dress perfectly, to look perfect. If a picture isn't perfect, what do? You Photoshop it, you know, you make everything look great. And if it looks great, then you think it is great. Everyone's posting these great pictures of vacations or going out. You have a party, you're going out to dinner. I always tell the teenagers that I teach, why does sushi taste better if I post it? Why do we have to post everything? And then you think if you're posting it, it means you're having the best time and the greatest time. Those who aren't there are thinking, wow, I wasn't invited to that. Look at what's happening to them. I don't have that. I didn't go there. Why wasn't I invited? Why don't I have fun? Why do they have all the fun? But that's not life. It's not life. Our expectation is not realistic of what life really is. We're looking at other people's posts, other people's pictures. We wonder, why isn't that my life?
So why would that make someone get divorced?
You don't know what real life is. You expect your life to be a fairy tale. You've been taught that if you have discomfort, you don't sit in the discomfort. Somebody will fix it for you. Something's too hard. Instead of learning how to struggle and grow a muscle of resilience, which you need in life to learn how to adjust to situations, because real life is not such that you'll never, ever be uncomfortable. You will be uncomfortable. You will be disappointed. You will be frustrated. You will fall off the bike. But then do you get back on, even though your knee is scraped and it hurts? Of course you do. So imagine if there's a toddler and the mother's like running every time the toddler's about to fall. She'll never learn to walk. What you think is good for your child, it's not always good. You can't always save the day.
So that explains, that's very edifying for a parent. For a woman who's 21 or 23 in a marriage, this is what we're seeing these days. Maybe you could speak a little bit about how to reverse that. She's already grown up in sort of a pampered way, is what you're saying. And that's, again, I think you're talking generalizations, not like every person, but if every person took it on and said, maybe I'm pampered, and were to think that way, I think, it would give everybody an aliyah, or a
We have
growth.
to ask ourselves, like, how do I grow in life? How do you grow in life? You don't grow by sitting in a spa, right? It's nice to sit in a spa, but that's not life.
Okay.
My mother would always say, in a desert, the sun is always shining, but what grows? Nothing grows. Cactus, right? In order to see growth and flowers and beauty, there has to be seasons of life. There has to be a rainstorm, not just sun shining all the time.
Wow.
That's life too. So to a young girl, I would say that, number one, be mindful of your blessings. Be mindful of your brachas. Don't always look at what everybody else is doing, what everybody else is getting, where everybody else is going. It's not good. It's not healthy. In Gan Eden, the Nachash brought poison to the world. But why Nachash? Because the word Nachash really means linachesh, to guess, to imagine. When you're imagining what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is getting, how nice her husband is. Why does her husband take out the garbage? Why does her husband take her out for dinner? When you keep imagining that everyone else has it better than you will never be happy. You're seeing everybody else's blessings. You don't even know what goes on, but you're imagining, and you fail to see your own. So start seeing your own brachos in life. Be content. You know what's so beautiful? We say in benching, in Berchas Hamazon, v'achalta, v'savata, uve'rachta. Yes, Hashem says, eat, consume, v'achalta, v'savata, but you have to be satisfied, uve'rachta, and then you could make a bracha, then you can bless. But we are missing the step of satisfaction, of contentment. As soon as we have one thing, we want to get to the next. We want to know what's the latest. When will you ever be happy with what you have? When will we do that? When will we say that we don't need one more thing? The blessing of enough. Dayenu. So I would ask, that all of us, and it doesn't matter at which stage of marriage we're at, but especially for newlyweds, where this is all new. Yes, the excitement is going to wear off a little bit because that's what happens. But that doesn't mean that you can't be happy. Life isn't always going to be a party. When something is new and exciting, it's like the new car, and you get in and has that new car scent. You're so excited, right? After a while, you get in and you forget and you stop appreciating and you lose that new car smell, right? But it's the same car.
Well, let me ask you, because I totally hear this is going in the right direction. I could see a woman's mind shifting a little bit and maybe letting in some room that it's not all her husband's fault. But right now, when a woman is discontent, it's very hard to see that my husband did, my new husband, but we've been married for 8 months or whatever, and he did in front of my mother-in-law put me down. He did tell my sister-in-law that I'm not that good of a cook. He did all these things that really hurt me. And then when I try and get him to apologize, he doesn't even meet me halfway. He says, "You're too sensitive." He doesn't even say, "I'm sorry. Oh, okay, I'm sorry." I'm like totally invalidated. He doesn't even, so I hear what
It's
you're
like you
saying.
listen to all these conversations, like
What'd
you're
you say?
really there.
I heard
True.
it. Been there, been there. So the issue is, so how can she shift when she's holding on to so much resentment? Yes, it's true. She does expect him to be like her parents and like her parents jumped in everywhere, and he's got his own concerns and his own worries and his own, whatever. And he's not used to like taking care of, her the way she was taken care of. So she has all this anger and resentment to him. And he probably is making dozens of mistakes. Guess what? He's human. But from a woman's standpoint, how is she supposed to forgive him and get over those resentments and do what you're saying of not, being happy with what she has when she's got really genuine things that make her feel that sort of is, just carries that resentment in her heart.
So I'm not saying it's not real, but mindset and perspective is really important, because if you have a mindset that he's so mean, or I can't believe him, that inner voice is going to create within you a situation where you tell yourself, wow, this is a disaster. Guess what? It's going to be a disaster. What you tell yourself becomes your reality and your truth. So what's your story? What are you writing? Do you think that this boy, a young man that you stood under the chuppah with such loving eyes, do you think he wants to hurt you? Do you want to hurt him? You're unraveling because you're writing a story that's a negative story. We have to find a way to get back into positive territory. Nobody enjoys a lack of shalom bayis. No young man wants to come home to a house where you're both not speaking to each other and you're frozen. Nobody wins. So somebody has to now make a shift. And who is that somebody going to be? Who's going to take the reins and say,
it's going to be
do it? And yes, and say, you know what? This is ridiculous. We have a home to build. What's a bayis ne'aman b'Yisrael? What does that really mean? Ne'amanut means that we're loyal, that we can trust each other. It begins with trust. So if you trust this person that you married, maybe he made a mistake, but ultimately you're trusting him with your hopes, with your dreams, with your heart, with your life. How can then you shift back to that place of building a bayis ne'aman b'Yisrael? You can't continue in this negative place. You can't go on telling yourself he's impossible. I can't believe him. Your mindset has to shift to a positive place. So you begin by not looking at him overall with this negative picture. Maybe there's something that is driving you crazy or frustrating you, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. Maybe he made a mistake, but it doesn't mean your marriage is a mistake.
I totally hear that. Can you interweave here? Because I'm feeling like the whole self-esteem issue that we discussed. I feel like if a woman could have a better understanding of her own self-esteem or lack of self-esteem, it could help her to understand how she might be seeing her husband.
Many people go into marriage thinking that the marriage will heal me. The marriage is going to make me happy. But if you're putting the onus on the marriage or the other person to make yourself feel better, you will never feel better. There's a hole inside of you. Why is there that hole? Why is there a lack of self-esteem? Now, I'm of course not speaking about dysfunction where, God forbid, chas v'shalom, you have a spouse who's constantly putting you down and being disrespectful, and that can erode a person's self-esteem. That's unhealthy, and nobody should have to go through that. That's dysfunction. It's unkind. It's a lack of midos. It's a lack of character. That's not a healthy marriage. I'm speaking about healthy, normal relationships where sometimes you get into things. If you feel good about yourself, if you feel that you are a person who has chiyus, who gives life to this world, then when you do have a disagreement with the spouse, when you do go through something with your husband, you're able to resolve it. If an apology or saying, I forgive you, or being able to open your heart, or saying, let's just put it away, if that will erode your self-esteem, if you're too small to say, you know what, that was that, I get it, you had a hard day, or you came home, and you're able to talk it out and have good communication, because that's really crucial, then your self-esteem will be intact.
Can you define for us self-esteem and how to grow it? Like, in other words, I don't know that there's a lot of clarity around that. And also, if someone is lacking self-esteem, how to get,
Right.
those are the two questions. What is self-esteem? And if you're lacking it, how do you get it?
So a lot of young women come into marriage and they don't have an identity. Identity and self-esteem are very connected. So if somebody says something to them that makes them feel badly, then they're like a flower that wilts. Of course, nobody wants anyone saying something negative to them. But when it crushes you, you have to ask yourself why you're being crushed. When somebody says, you know what, I didn't really like this supper. Why does that have to become a whole big thing? There's a nice way to say it for sure, but do you want your husband to not tell you if something doesn't taste good to him, or if we could improve something, right? Why does that crush you? So where does self-esteem come from? You have to have an identity. How do you have an identity? By feeling chiyus, by feeling that you're alive. How do you feel that you're alive? By becoming a giver and not a taker. When I'm constantly taking from other people, I don't have an identity. I don't know who I am. When I'm vital in this world, when I am a life force, then I become a person who has an identity. I have self-esteem. I'm needed. I feel as if I wake up in the morning, Hashem, you believe in me because I'm needed in this world. Could you imagine waking up in the morning and feeling that you have no purpose? When you have meaning, you have purpose in this world, you have to figure out, why am I here? I always say, ask yourself one question before you go to sleep. Whose eyes did I make shine today? Whose eyes did I make shine today? If I made somebody's eyes shine today, then I'm purposeful. It can be a stranger. It can be the person sitting across from you at the kitchen table. But that means that you are a giver. And when you are a giver, you have a tachlis. You feel good when you give. You don't feel good when you're constantly taking. You're happy when you're able to give. doesn't mean that you don't take care of yourself. But why do you take care of yourself? I take care of myself so that I will have the energy to give more, to be more, to create more meaning in my life. It's not about me because I'm a selfish person. It's about me because I want to be a giving person.
So you're saying the root of self-esteem is giving? Being a
Is
giver?
giving,
Being a
to be
giver.
a giver, to live with purpose. What's my purpose here? Do you ever ask yourself? You're listening right now. Who's ever listening? Why am I here? Why did Hashem put me here? There's no coincidence. There's nothing random. Why was I put in that family? Why did I meet this friend? Why did I marry this person? Why do I have this gift? Why am I great at art, music, personality, sense of humor, cooking? I love kids, whatever it is, writing. Why did Hashem give you the gift that you are able to come on here and reach thousands of people with your sparkling personality and you're just quick? Hashem gave you this gift. Why? What a waste when we don't use our gifts to make this world better. And it doesn't mean that you have to do something that you're famous for, but it means that in your mikdash ma'at, in your mini sanctuary, you're able to bring beauty and peace and light into a place which otherwise would be so dark.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about the social pressure that people are feeling today, with social media and whatever else people might be doing, but also, this whole thing, I and maybe you can tie it in a little bit to this divorce situation of, okay, maybe it's because, people have been pampered. And so then now they expect instant gratification and it's not coming. And so they're like, oh, I don't know how to, what did you call it? The uncomfortability. I don't want to live with the uncomfortability. So I hear that. But maybe you can also talk a little bit about the effect of photos and selfies and all that kind of thing, to shed more light on it. And I really want to go to the heart of what a woman is feeling who feels like, she's been married for 6 months and she's like, what, like, really, like this, like if we could address her and just help her, I would.
So I want to
love
make
your thoughts.
sure, and I want us to both make sure that our audience knows we're not speaking chas v'shalom about abuse or dysfunction or personality disorders, because that requires real help. And no woman should be subject to that.
Mhm.
So I want to be clear
Right.
about that. We're
Very
speaking about regular life. Life isn't going to always be that you're coming home and you're in love and you're always going to have these amazing words for each other and compliments, even though it should be, but people have tough days and people sometimes are in a little bit of a bad mood. Something happened, something happened in yeshiva, something happened at work, something happened with the kids. There's disappointments. You're going through different things together. There are different trials and tribulations. And you have to learn how to live with each other, with each other's families. What does not help all that? Seeing how other people post their lives or text to you, oh, look what he bought me. Look where we went out. Oh, wow, I never go out. Why does he never get? My mother-in-law never bought that for me. Why do they go away for Pesach? And, we never go away like that. Their parents are coming into Israel for Sukkot. My parents never come in and take us. We're always stuck in the house. What does that do? What does that do to a human being?
Mm. Mm.
It strips you of your joy. It takes away your feeling of, I love my life. We hurt ourselves. We damage ourselves. We damage our lives together. We can't be happy and content in the moment. How do we define happiness? If we define our happiness by things, of course, we're never going to be happy. And we make a mistake and we say, if I would just get, and fill in the blank, right? If I would just lose those last 10 pounds, if I would just have a bigger apartment, if I would just have a bigger engagement ring, if my husband would just take me out to that restaurant instead of us always eating at home all the time. Everyone has a different if only, if I would just. But if you're living with that mindset, you have to catch yourself. That's an avoda. Every time that voice comes into your head, oh, if I would just, every time you hear that, shut it down. You will be a much happier person. That's the truth.
Okay, we have time for one last question. And wow, it's very, very intense. I do want to say one thing about this before I ask this next question, which I think is a very, very serious issue, which is everybody's saying, why is there so much divorce and whatever? And your answers and your full understanding of it is very, very powerful. But there's one fundamental thing that I'm kind of like on a warpath about. And I just said, oh, I really need to say this in this show because it's crucial. And that is that everyone who's watching, knows about kashrus, maybe a lot, probably a lot about kashrus. They know a lot about Shabbos, probably a lot about Shabbos. But when it comes to shalom bayis, right, it's not in our educational systems or institutions, a little here, a little there, a little there, but it's not, you know the rules of monopoly better than the laws of lashon hara. I mean the shalom bayis, the Masorah of shalom bayis. Okay, so a lot of people when they say how come there's such a big divorce rate? It's like, what do we expect? Like, we're not teaching it in schools. Mother to daughter, there are all kinds of other influences are coming in. The mothers don't even know it, perhaps, most women don't. If you stop anyone in a grocery store and ask her, what is our Masorah for shalom bayis? I doubt she'll know an answer. So I'm going to ask you the next question, but I realized suddenly, like, I have to burst out with that this is, that's the biggest problem, is that people don't have our Masorah for shalom bayis like the back of their hand. If they did, a lot of the things that you're talking about, like, expectations of a husband, it's like, no, that's not reasonable to expect from a husband. It's like, oh,
Also, I think also that young women and even as women age, they have to really understand that men don't have the same brains. Meaning we don't
same what? What's the word?
Same brains. We don't
brains,
communicate the
right.
same way.
Yeah.
We don't see things the same way. A guy will see something else like, no big deal. So my shirt's on the chair, my hat's on the table. And to a woman, it's like, what a mess. Why don't you just hang up your shirt or put your hat away? Right. So you're starting already at a different baseline of what you see as what's a big deal and what's not a big deal.
Fantastic. Spot on, spot on. My final question for you is, what is one action women can do to bridge the gap and get closer to their husband?
Connect. And how do you connect? First of all, don't stop being curious about your husband. You're dating, you want to find out everything about him. Whatever he says, you come home, you know what he said? My gosh, and you're thinking about him and wow, he has dreams and it's amazing. And then somehow, when it's not new anymore, you stop asking. You stop being curious. You stop respecting the visions and the dreams and the hopes. You just talk about what? The credit card bills or, the kids, where are we going to eat? Who's coming for Shabbos? Be curious. People grow. People have dreams. People change. People love to talk about what's in their hearts. And if you think your husband doesn't like to talk, right? But when you're on the date, you're able to bring it out, or you be the one who takes it to the next level. If you think, oh my gosh, life has become so boring, it doesn't have to be like that. You bring that magic into the room. Use your bina, use your wisdom. Woman's wisdom is so exquisite. Hashem gave it to us for a reason. What is bina? That you see something, but you don't just see the surface. Adam is Adama. He sees the surface. A woman is bina. Mevin davar mitoch davar. You go below the surface. Don't be content with the surface. Don't live with regrets that you didn't have the ability to bring that spark into your life. Don't be tired. Don't say, "Ugh, I'm exhausted. I can't." You can do this. Really, you can do this.
That's great. That's great. Wow. Wow. So much to think about. It's like all washing over me. Thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful to you for the wisdom and the insight and the exploring these issues that I think are very, very deep and very important. And I hope it gave everybody a lot to think about to grow themselves. There's always something a wife can do. And if you grow yourself into be the person that can appreciate and be simchadik with whatever you have in your life. It's a beautiful, beautiful lesson. And thank you so much, Rebbetzin, for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, this is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next time. Mwah.